For today we're playing Monster Hunter Wilds, beta number 2, with 4 different GPUs. First card is the RTX 3080 at 1080p, ultra settings, no DLSS. And here we are with that. There we go. So it's been a few months now. They've had a few months to fix up the game. The full release is in 2 weeks, I think. Very close. And yeah, sadly the game is still running pretty poorly on the 3080. VRAM is at 9 gigs. This card only has 10. And the FPS is sitting into the 40s and the 50s on average.
Weather's changing.
So 3080 at native 1080p can't get 60 FPS at the ultra preset. Pretty insane. Right here, the game is stuttering as well. It's not major, but it's definitely happening. Very consistent too. And right there, high 30s as well. So high 30s on average into the mid 40s, and the highest point was like the mid 50s. So yeah, there we go with that. Let's pause the game, guys, enable DLSS, and see if 60 FPS is doable then. And using DLSS, we're now sitting into the low 60s and the mid 50s, with dips down into the 40s still. So yeah, around a 10 FPS increase pretty much. At most 20, but that's kind of rare. And for the graphics, it is very similar, but it does have issues, that's for sure. The main issue is the water outline. If there's an animal in the water, there's a clear outline between the character and the water itself. So, looks bad there, but overall, it's not too bad actually. And the lowest point here was the mid 40s, but again on average it is sitting into the low 50s and the low 60s. Yeah, personally I would just slow the settings, to be honest, to medium or high instead of ultra. But if you must play at the max settings, this is how the game's going to run at 1080p. Playing at 440p, we're now sitting into the low 30s, up into the mid 30s, even down into the mid 20s before. Not really surprising though. We had what, the 40s on average, the 30s to the 40s on average, and with a high resolution it has fallen down into the low 30s, even the mid 20s to be honest. Very choppy. But it does look better. It does look way sharper, way more crisp. So at least it has that going for it. And the same stutters are still here. So you keep that in mind. It isn't a smooth 30. It is quite choppy, to be honest. And balanced DLSS. We are sitting into the mid 40s and the low 50s. Pretty good. Like a 20 FPS increase pretty much. A 10 to 20 FPS increase. And for the stutters, it's definitely gotten better. It's still happening, of course, but it isn't as major as native 1440p. But yeah, 60 FPS isn't really doable with these settings. Ideally lower the settings to, again, medium or high, or you can use FSR3 frame gen and get fake frames in between and get 60 FPS that way as well. Okay, let's back out, guys, play with the RTX 4060 and see how we go there. Alright, next GPU is the RTX 4060, and we're playing at 1080p, high settings, no DLSS. Let's go with that. Alright, see you guys in the game. And in the game we're sitting into the low 30s and the mid 30s on average. Highest point was the low 40s. Not great all around, but not surprising. It was running pretty poorly on the 3080, so the 4060 will have a harder time, of course. To me, this feels the same as the previous beta. It's like identical pretty much. It's very hard to run, and the graphics are subpar for how badly it's running. For the graphics, it's kind of soft, and in some areas it is kind of muddy, but I guess not bad. Let's pause it here, guys, enable DLSS, and see how we go with that. With DLSS, we're sitting into the low 40s and the mid 40s now. Pretty good, again, a 10 FPS increase from before. And the graphics are pretty similar. It isn't as good, but it's very close. It can still fall down though. Our lowest point was 34 FPS. And the pop-in as well here is kind of crazy. A lot of pop-in. So you got a low of 34 and a max of, I think, what, 45? Not ideal, is it? Let's pause it here, guys, enable frame gen, and see if 60 FPS is doable with that. With frame gen active, we're now sitting at 60 FPS, so not too bad actually, and the input delay is not there. I can't really feel it, to be honest. It feels the same as before, which is nice, I guess. But at the same time, there might be heavier scenes that make the FPS fall below 60, and the input delay will get far, far worse. Time for 1440p with frame gen active. We are sitting into the mid 50s and the low 60s. For the inputs, it's not too bad actually. Maybe a bit more, but overall, it is usable in this scene. Again though, in those heavier scenes, it might get worse and feel unplayable, so keep that in mind as well. But the game looks way better here, way sharper, way more crisp. And we are sitting near the 60s at least. Again, not ideal, but at least a 60 FPS can be hit with fake frames. Now playing with the 2070 at 1080p medium settings, no DLSS. We'll go with that. There we go. So this game defaults to the lowest settings for this one and ultra performance DLSS. Kinda insane. Yeah, it's an older GPU from 2018, but still, it isn't weak. It's still quite capable. So the lowest settings with ultra performance DLSS is insane. But yeah, FPS wise we're sitting into the low 30s with dips into the 20s. Not really surprising, of course. This game runs like garbage. Make our way down here.
Wow, what a view!
What a view. It's a muddy mess. Mid-20s, high 20s on average. Highest point, low 30s, I guess. So for the medium settings, you will need DLSS. And 60 FPS won't be doable, I don't think. Using DLSS, and we're now sitting at the high 30s and the low 40s. So quite a bit better. But again, in those heavier scenes, it might fall even lower and fall back down into the 20s. So keep that in mind. It isn't a guaranteed 30 or 40. And those heavier scenes might fall way lower. Yeah, for the graphics, just awful to be honest. At this point, it is just super blurry, very muddy. It's good up close, obviously, but yeah, in the distance, it is just so bad. And the water here, what is happening, guys? What is happening here? Alright, guys, episode 3 active now with frame gen as well. And we're sitting into the 60s. For the input delay, a bit worse, but only a tiny bit. And the graphics are about the same, so not great, sadly. But yeah, at this point the game is definitely playable, but for me, not really worth a buy, to be honest. It is too expensive for how bad the game looks and how badly it runs. Okay, let's make it worse. Use a 1060 and see how we go with that one. Last card, the GTX 1060, 720p lowest settings, no upscaling. Here we go with that. There we go. So yeah, using upscaling here, we'll just break the game. You'll have a black screen with FSR or XeSS. Yep, this looks this looks awful, guys. Man, 10 FPS here. Not really surprising though, is it? I mean, Spider-Man 2, which is very intensive and has people upset on how badly it runs, plays at 30 FPS or 40 FPS on this card. And with these graphics, I mean, this just looks bad, man. Spider-Man 2 looks respectable. It looks pretty good still on this card. This game, I mean, it's worse than a Switch game. I think Borderlands 2 on the PS Vita played better than this. That's saying something, because that was an awful port as well. But yeah, anyway, that is the state of Monster Hunter Wilds on 4 different GPUs. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time for the next video. See you guys there.